What is going on, everybody? My name is Ian, but you can call me IsBe, and welcome to Let's Talk About Today, the short series where I talk about breaking news as quick as I can. Reminder that I am not an expert, but all the information that I'm about to spill you can find on Google, and I highly recommend you research it yourself. Also, while I do make jokes, topics are pretty important and can be pretty serious. But today we're going to be talking about the huge question that everyone is talking about, which is, why did the United States go into a foreign nation and kidnap the president like they're Nicolas Cage in National Treasure?
I'm gonna kidnap him. I'm gonna kidnap the president.
Venezuela.
Venezuela. Did I spell that right? Ella, not Ella. Venezuela. I think the most important thing to note is that what is currently happening in Venezuela is not a new thing. As an example, Avatar Fire and Ash just came out, and with Fire and Ash, a lot of people, including myself, went back to watch the first two movies. In the very first movie, which came out in 2009, there is a reference that the United States went to war with Venezuela. And a lot of people have pointed this out, being like, oh my gosh, did James Cameron predict the future? And not really. It's not so much as predicting the future when you can just look at the patterns and make an educated guess. Well, obviously the big buzzword that everyone is talking about is oil, because Venezuela has a lot of oil. All the oil is from Venezuela. A name you'll probably hear a lot, and one you might be familiar with, is Exxon, which is the you know it as the gas station company. I think they have a tiger as their logo, or at least they had a tiger as their logo at one point in time. Now, Exxon is a company based in the US of A. And so when Exxon went to Venezuela to get their oil, they took like all of the oil. And so all the money and profit of the oil was going to the United States, despite the fact that it was Venezuela's stuff. And this pretty much tanked Venezuela's economy, because they have all of this money, basically, like liquid gold is what they call oil. They have all this money, and they're not making anything of it because the United States and Exxon, as the oil company, is taking it all. Venezuela was left with metaphorical pennies of their own resource. Now, all of this occurred in the 90s. That is why James Cameron was able to reference it in 2009. Now, because Venezuela had like no money and they were essentially being robbed of what could have been their greatest resource, they had to pick a leader to do something. And that guy was named Hugo Chavez. And this is not the guy that Trump arrested, but he is important. Hugo Chavez became a dictator because the Venezuelan people couldn't really do anything because they were dirt poor. So he started to do things like replace their government with people who were loyalists and ignore the checks and balances of their Congress and change the Constitution in whichever ways he could. And why do I feel like I've heard this before? Now, before we continue, I do want to point out, this guy is not good, and the next guy we're talking about, the guy Donald Trump had arrested, they are not good people. And what you're seeing a lot of in propaganda terms are people basically being like, well, the Venezuelans are happy because their dictator has been arrested. Nobody is disagreeing that these are bad people. The issue is that the United States went into a foreign country and decided that they can do whatever they want to said foreign country. There's also the issue of the fact that Donald Trump did not tell Congress, and also the fact that all the oil companies, like Exxon, they were all informed about the raid of Venezuela before our government. Again, this is why it's important to actually look into what is happening, because there's nuance to everything. This is a bad person. The guy who we arrested was a bad person. That doesn't give the United States the right to do what they feel. Especially because, as we're going to get into, it's not like we did it because we're good people. We did it for our own benefit. Like that scene in Megamind where Titan defeats Megamind and the mayor's like, you freed us! You freed us! And Hal's like, I wouldn't say freed, more like under new management. The United States is Hal.
Thank you! Titan has freed us!
Oh, I wouldn't say free. More like under new management.
Regardless, this guy's in charge. He starts being a dictator and starts authoritating all over everyone and just, basically ruins everything. But this guy eventually dies in 2013. When he dies, his vice president takes over, and that is who the United States just arrested, Nicolas Maduro. And again, he wasn't much better than the first guy. He was still like a huge dictator. That's why he was this guy's vice president. Way back in 2012, when this guy took over, President Barack Obama labeled it a threat to democratic security. Which kind of led to, today, where everyone's like, Mexico sucks. Americans can't really tell the difference between the types of Latin Americans, so everybody who speaks Spanish is part of Mexico. But this is where it gets a little more complicated, because the oil is only part of the story. Because there's one person that we haven't talked about that is actually really important as to why Donald Trump decided to go through with this. And that is a lady named Maria Machado. How do I spell her name? We're gonna pretend I spelled her name correctly. Now, on the surface, she's a good person, because her whole thing back in the 90s was she had an organization that was designed to take over Hugo Chavez's authoritarian terrain. And her organization was funded by the Bush administration. However, she failed, and so did her organization. And when she was like, hey, we need help, the United States was like, look at those birds up there. Some interesting birds. Look at that. However, she came back in 2025 because she won the Nobel Peace Prize. And in her speech upon winning the Nobel Peace Prize, she thanked, I'll give you a guess. Who do you think she thanked? She thanked our good old boy, Mr. Trumpy Trump. That's why late last year, there was a huge story about the United States destroying a boat, saying that it was a Mexican cartel boat, and that it was like a drug boat, and then they shot the survivors, and everyone was like, you can't shoot survivors, and then Pete Hegseth decided to be like, well, we can do whatever we want, because we're the United States. Regardless, going back to Donald Trump, because he's the reason all this is happening, again, I said that oil was only part of it, so that means what's the other part of it? Is he getting some from Miss Marchudia? No. What's happening is there's another organization. I know, there's a lot of organizations here. Just bear with me. The last and the more important organization, and the reason why this alliance sort of happened, is because of an alliance known as the BRICS. And the BRICS is an alliance between Brazil, Russia, India, China, and South Africa. The idea is that all of these countries, they came together and basically they made a group chat without the United States. And we all know how our boy Donnie feels about being excluded from anything, because he has to be the center of attention at all times. And this all relates back to the oil, because when trading oil, since Exxon, the United States company, has the majority of the oil that is in Venezuela, if these other countries want oil, they have to buy it with United States money. And that helps our economy stay up. Exxon keeps most of the oil from Venezuela and then sells it to other countries, and then those other countries give us United States money. But Exxon hasn't been able to do that, because when Chavez died and Nicolas took over, Nicolas basically removed all of that stuff and used his authoritative powers to take back all the oil that was going to these other countries. So Exxon did not have access to the oil that they had access to for the whole time, basically. And that is why, like I mentioned earlier, the oil companies knew about the Venezuelan takeover before our Congress did. Because our boy Donnie did his billionaire buddies a favor, and his business buddies, his billionaire business buddies, a favor, and let them know what was going on. Presumably so they could rig the system and put stocks into different places and all that, but still. this relates back to the BRICS because, again, the BRICS are trading money without the help of the United States. So Donnie did what he does best and made a scene. So now we're back. We have the oil from Venezuela. We're giving it back to Exxon. And so now we have essentially forced ourselves back into the group chat because BRICS wants oil. And we have the majority of the oil. So they have to talk to us. And they have to give us our money. And if the United States money, or is the one being traded through everyone, then the United States money looks really good. So, long story short, all of this is happening because of evil corporations, racism, and our boy Donnie being phased out of his friend group. Let me know your thoughts on all of this down in the comments below, and let me know if I got anything wrong, because again, I will repeat, I am not an expert. I am just a guy who can do research because, you know, Google's still free for the time being. And as always, my name is Dan, but you can call me IsBe, and we've talked about today. I'll see you tomorrow.